Hello everyone, it's Michelle Angelique, Truth and Integrity Warrior. Today is January 26, 2021. This is episode 5, The Rise of a Species, Mankind. And today I was supposed to bring to episode 5, leading off of episode 4, I was supposed to come in with visuals. I wanted to show visuals and I wasn't able to get it in enough time, so I'm going to be changing it up a little bit. It's still on the same track. I'm just going to have to do that one at another time. I really want to make it very clear of the field that we live in, and that's the visuals I wanted to show, how geometric patterns fit in the field and throughout balanced vibration, because they don't have to be necessarily positive, they're just balanced vibration. And when things are out of balance, out of tune, into the negative, then we start getting a distortion in those geometrical patterns. So once we can actually see that with equipment that we have, we're just not aware that it's around, we're able to recognize what we're working with, what we're generating, and what is also causing an effect to us. And having those little basics, ABC 1, 2, 3s, and being able to make a relevant connection once we can see what it is, these words that I'm expressing about the field that we live in and how we work in it. Come on, I'll start clicking really quick. I'm really sure about that. And again, I apologize for not being able to bring it in on this episode, but it's gonna take me a lot more time than what I thought I could get it done in. So let's move on. I want to, this episode 5, I want to bring it into something on a more hopeful side. My other podcasts could be scary, could be looked at as scary. But like I said, you got to see the bully. You got to call them out. And that's scary. That's scary for a lot of people. But till that gets done, nothing's ever going to happen. We're just going to dance around the big old elephant in the room. And we have to cut that out. So that we're going into this episode into hope, keeping hope alive, and what that means, what vibration that actually generates. On coincidence, what's going on with coincidences, and how we've been entrained to disbelieve them, even though we believe that there's something important there. So I'm going to talk about that. And Anastacia. Anastacia is something that was brought to my attention through coincidence. I'm going to share what those coincidences were to get me to the point that turns us right back around to hope. Because it's an incredible story what I found out about Anastacia. How I found out about Anastacia was the incredible coincidences to lead me to understand that there's something very real about, I don't want to say character Anastacia, but this person, this woman who came to share with humanity its greatest potential. Words that we're not used to hearing. And it's in a book of 9 series books. Book series is what I want to say. I want to say a book series made up of nine books. I'll go into that where you can get that information. A couple of videos that you can listen to just to get an idea of what we're talking about or what this is about. Before I go into Anastacia, I'm going to jump in the middle and go into the importance of coincidence. So we've been entrained to say, I don't believe in coincidences, but we're really feeling and we're really saying there's something important right there, but our words say, I don't believe in them. So how did we get to the point where we don't believe in coincidences, but yet we know that there's something very important right there that needs extra attention paid to because of the coincidence? So anytime you catch yourself saying or hear somebody saying that they've had an experience and they don't believe in coincidences, have them turn that around. Just change that. Change it into, because it's a coincidence, it needs my extra attention. I got to give it extra attention because of the coincidence. Because coincidences are 1 in a billion, 1 in a million, whatever odds you want to give it. But the odds of something happening in a sequence of events the way that they do, it's because they need extra attention. Now, once our words change, it'll match with what we feel, because we know it needs extra attention, but our words are saying, I don't believe. So that pushes it back right away, because we got the power in our words to push back, and then we're out of sync because we know, we feel there's something important right there, but our words say reject, I don't believe, I do not accept. Regardless of what we think, this what actually is happening, because our words are rejecting. So because we have coincidences, that is a lead to a direction to go in the right way, to lead us into a path of an awareness that we might have not have paid attention to, that'll help us in the present or in the future. And everybody goes through coincidences and they either brush them off, don't pay any attention to them, or they're not really sure why it's happening or what they got to do with that information. So I'm just going to go into my experiences, or a couple. I have a ton, but in this episode I'm just going to use a couple so that we can get an idea of what to do when we have coincidences, what it means. Actually, before I go into that, I just recognized I wanted to make a statement about something, about episode 4. Because in episode 4, I recognized that I didn't finish off how I would have liked to. I didn't give enough explanation on never letting, in episode 4, I said, never let anything speak through you, through your vehicle. I still can't remember what those people are named, mediums or people who allow things to talk through them. They feel extra special, extra important because they're connected to something that's outside of everybody else's abilities, and they always got some kind of good information to give to everybody. Well, we're in some tricky waters. We can't believe fools that are in the flesh, much less fools that are not in the flesh that are telling us stuff. That got to be very careful, because there's a fine line between truth and a lie right now. Right now, people can't tell the difference. They think they have discernment. They haven't even found discernment within themselves, much less with something in the physical form, and even less in something in the non-physical form. So we are going to be corralled very easily into a mislead and misdirection if we're not attentive to these little details. And so when good, in episode 4, I was saying that negative or evil or bad doesn't respect a line. It crosses the line, right? And going into people and communicating through people, supposedly to bring a message to humanity, is crossing the line. And it's always going to use beautiful sugared powdered words and pretty and flowery until it gets its point into the direction it wants to lead the people. And this is what I mean. People have to be very careful and never allow that. Never allow that. I'll go into something else a little bit later. One moment, please. All right, I was cut off there, coming back. So when I say never allow that, is because that's trespassing. The way good comes across and gets information into individuals, whatever good mentality or force or beings, whatever is on the good side, knows not to cross that line, knows that there is a limit, and will bring communication and awareness through different means. And those means will be through dreams, through coincidence, through inspiration, through motivation, different ways where we become inspired to take a direction, or we become aware of something we weren't aware of, or we'll have a full vision in a dream to take us now into a different path that we might have not have taken. And so And sometimes, and I've had my own personal experience with this, it'll come in quick, direct, to the point to make something happen. Like having to go in and move a steering wheel, or having to go in and make a statement so that somebody makes immediate change. And in this episode, I'll give an experience I had to let me know that there are good guys out there, just like there's bad guys, but the good guys just step in, step out. Step in, step out, because it is crossing the line to be constantly communicating with individuals and giving them knowledge, giving them directions for the species of mankind. Like I said, mankind is going to get herded. It is being herded right now, and we're being herded by gurus. A lot of gurus herding people into a direction, and I will go into other podcasts about that, calling out names, calling out their contradictions, and showing how they're doing it. And these are people that you believe in, or that people believe in. These are people that they could never imagine them being misleading people. But that's a much deeper episode. I'm going to focus on this one right here. And that will be about understanding how good doesn't cross the line and bad does. And it just jumps right in to people's vehicle. And if the individual feels that they lack something within themselves, be it they have insecurities, or be it that they have to feel more important than others, then that'll be very easy to navigate that individual. It'll be very easy for that individual to feel that they got a power that nobody else has. And so they'll continue with it, thinking that they're doing the right thing, thinking that they have control. They don't have control. To have control means that this is my vehicle. Step out. Nothing coming and moving or maneuvering through oneself. So, let me circle this right back. So that ends up finishing off how I wanted to express how good actually works in a subtle way to get things done, and negativity works through talking to people on a regular basis. No bueno. So I had an experience, and that experience is how I got a direct information. I heard it auditorily on the right side of my ear. I heard it. I looked around, and I was like, "What? How? Where did that come from?" And it ended up saving my little boy's life. My boy at the time was 8 years old, and because I paid attention to what was said, I almost didn't. Literally, I almost didn't. But because I just had to see if what I was told meant anything, I ended up saving my kid's life. And that information was given to me to make sure my son stayed alive. And so that, it's a big story. I don't want to take it into a different direction, but I was cooking breakfast. Tell you what happened. I was cooking breakfast for my son, and after making breakfast, or I shouldn't say after, while I was making breakfast, I heard auditorily, "Don't leave until," and said my son's name, "he finishes eating." And I was just that stuff didn't make no sense, right? I wasn't on YouTube, wasn't watching videos, people didn't talk about this stuff, and it was just like incredible. So that was over 20 years ago that happened. And long story short, my little sister was in the house, 12 years old, and my mom was in the house, and my 8-year-old son. So and this was a male voice, and so there was no way that I could possibly hear that when there was nobody physically there. Because I listened, I was walking out, and I almost didn't listen. Remember that? I almost didn't listen. As I was walking out of the house, my little sister was asleep. My son was eating breakfast, watching cartoons, and I was going out to the car to take my mom down the street to the bus stop. Simple, easy, quick, right? And I was coming right back. And so right before I shut the door, I was about to shut the door, I looked at his plate, and I was saying, okay, he's done with breakfast. And I was still listening to the voice, but not. And as he ate that last bite of whatever meat was on there, I wasn't sure if it was bacon or something, but eating that last piece of meat, he ended up choking, and he started running around the house with his hands around his neck, and he couldn't breathe. Since I almost had the door almost closed and I was looking, I swung the door open, went, gave my son the Heimlich, and he was okay. But if I would have left, my little sister was in there, 12 years old, she's sleeping. She's around 12 years old, give or take a year or two. But she's sleeping, heavy sleeper, wouldn't have hurt him, wouldn't have known what to do if she did wake up. And my son could have choked to death. And so the reason it's so relevant, that information, is because not only is information coming in through the field, and what we do with that information then takes the discernment of oneself, right? Depending on the circumstances. And the fact that information is being said that something was going to happen before it happened, meaning it already happened and there was something coming in and making a correction. And this is where the only way that can happen is if there is a flux or a change or a movement through a time, and saying it happened, how do we make it not happen? Well, we got to go in, make a auditory connection, make sure that she saves her kid. Done. When I say done, I mean it's not more complex than that. And that made me, not then, but it makes me now in these times. Remember, this is 20 years ago. I didn't know and understand what I know now. 20 years ago, I just collected information since I was a little kid, putting them in my what the fuck is going on bag. You know, this bag is just full of stuff. It's like, what the fuck is going on in my world, in my life? As a kid, as a teenager, as an adult. So all I knew was I was just going to keep collecting that information, and one day it was going to matter. One day it was going to mean something. And for that to happen, in other episodes, we'll be talking about how time can change according, obviously, to one's actions. And one's actions is because one willed it to happen. And then we have destiny that's predestined, what we came to do, what is supposed to happen. People are always fighting about one or the other when they're both happening. They're both happening. There's a destiny to be done. Something must be done. An individual comes to do. You know, people can speak for themselves, feel for themselves, put their own shoes, put their own, size shoe that fits them. And there is a destiny to happen. And then there is the will to make a choice in which direction we go through that destiny. And so I say that's another episode for another conversation. But in the reason I wanted to make sure to express that is, yes, we may hear something auditorily, but to keep communication going, that's a danger zone, and it shouldn't be played with. People shouldn't be doing that. Like I said, I know people who do that, and we stop talking. We stop talking because of it. And if you're somebody who is doing that and you feel a greater power than other people, or you feel you have a special ability that other people don't have, check yourself. Check yourself in your ego. Check yourself in what makes you feel not important, that makes you now feel important because you're listening to something that nobody else can. And I say that to message to people who I've lost communication with because of that. I chose not to communicate with them anymore because they are riding on a different wavelength, and I don't like that mixing in my world. If I came from an outside source coming in here, losing memory, as I say, coming in into this reality, losing memory, I am very sure that I said, I don't want none of y'all motherfuckers talking to me. And when I'm talking about the good guys, right? If I got like a group of homies, group of friends, a big old team, and we're like, okay, you're gonna go in there, you're gonna go fix shit, you're gonna go turn down this AI system from the inside out because we can't take care of it from the outside. To make sure that lines don't get crossed, communications don't get crossed, it's follow leads through dreams, follow leads through coincidence, follow leads through inspiration, intuition. Though we have to find those pieces, and that's the only way it can be done. We have to find those pieces through that avenue for it to be legit. And I don't know another way to express it. When I say legit, it's because you had to walk the walk, you had to talk the talk, you had to feel the feel. Nobody came and gave no information, and now you're just handing off information. No, I've had to live an experience to know what it is that is being expressed and shared with others. And it goes through those steps, like I'm telling you. It's like a bread trail or a crumb trail, right? We got to pay attention and see through this world that we're in. So if I was talking to my team saying, you know what, when I go in there, none of y'all motherfuckers talk to me, because I ain't gonna listen. I am not gonna listen. And the only one time I did listen, and the only one time I did have that auditory in that sense, it helped me help my child. So I know that there is good out there. It's not just bad infiltrating and running amok in our world. There is good. I don't want people to think that I'm just always focused on the bad and there's only bad and there's never good. It's not like that. It's if we don't recognize how this bad is working in our reality, it's going to keep playing us, because it works within the individual and it works through what the individual says, and it makes other people react. It's cause and effect. The individual who is being led by these negatives that ride in people do actions that then cause a negative effect in our world. And so if we can't see something that is not visible to sight, how are we going to call it out? How are we going to see it? So this is why I talk about it, because it comes from my experience to identify it. How to identify it. And so please don't get discouraged when I communicate about it. It's not that all hope is gone and it's all negative. It's just we got to just talk about these things so that we have some awareness on what we're going to do about it. So that when we do come in with hope, with focus, with determination, we're very good at it. It's like those kids who play those video games. The more they do it, the better they are, and they can almost do it with their eyes closed. So I want to get us to the point where we can do this with the eyes closed, where we can sense, feel, know with clarity the direction that we're going in, and we're not crushing the people that we love, and we're not following the people that are misleading because they say all the words that one wants to hear. So we got a lot of things playing, and I'm just doing my best to get out this information. Talking about these things that are inside of humans and misdirecting them and how to find them through contradiction. I found something a couple of days ago from somebody called Matthew Lacroix. I hope I said his name right. And I watched a video of an interview he did. It was a fall of Atlantis and the rise of the Archons. And then he talked, and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So when I was listening to that, there is a part in there where he talks about on the tablets of Thoth. These are Egyptian writings found under Mayan pyramids on emerald tablets. You can look into that, get information on that. All I want to go over is what I heard in there was pretty extraordinary on the part of the 8th tablet. So Matthew Lacroix, he talks about on the 8th tablet, this is what it says. This is what Thoth says. And in that, I'm going to cut out that section just so you can hear the 8th tablet, and I'll also put a link to the whole audio. But just so you can hear that in that tablet, it is saying exactly the experience that I've had growing up throughout my life. That it rides within a being. It confuses all beings. They can't see it, and it is the evil that is unseen in how it works. I don't have a better way to explain it because I don't have it in front of me where I could read it off word for word. But it described something that happened and was written thousands of years ago, and I'm talking about it right now. And I'm not saying I'm the only one talking about it. I'm just speaking from my experience. And to find something written that's saying the same thing, it's pretty validating. So if you want to see that, I'll put a link to what it said on the 8th tablet and the rest of that interview with Matthew Lacroix. So I thought that was very interesting. All right, we're going to go back over into what I was talking about, hope, coincidence, and Anastacia. So Anastacia brings this hope to humanity in this 9-series book that is from a Russian person, a Russian gentleman. His name is Vladimir Megre. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And his experience with Anastacia is in those books. And this is not too long ago. His experience was, I believe, in the 90s. And if I'm not incorrect, because I haven't read these books, I've just gone into a couple audio chapters. I was blown away, like blown away. So the information is there, or I should say, information is in there. The mankind has not become aware that he has the capability and the potential to do and what he and she actually is. And this book has expressions in it that it's like, I'm trying to just wrap things up in a nutshell because one, I haven't read the book. I've only heard a couple of chapters that has blown my mind that I'm going to share right now. And that this book is comparable to Star Wars or Star Trek or Star Wars, I can't remember which of the two, and the Bible. So it's taking ancient wisdom along with high-tech advances that we got going on. And what we got going on today in the tech is not what we had in the 90s. So it's pretty incredible what's in that book and the time it was written. And now the people that are reading it and the hope and energy that it projects in oneself. So we can say all the hopeful things that we're used to, and it makes us feel good and do good, but we know deep inside we need some more. We need something to say, I got it. I can take that lead. I can see it now with my imagination. My imagination can now take me somewhere that with hope, I know I will get there. So that hope is I can now visualize in my imagination, in my mind, to know that there is a direction. Because with what's going on with this virus and what's going on with this injection, what's going on with this globalization, hope is necessary. We got to see what we are made of, see how we project, see the effect that we cause to one another in a good way, and how we can stop what is happening to our world. And I want to say something about the Anastacia book, just so you get an idea of how incredible information that's in there. And like I said, I've just barely gone into a couple audio readings. I'll also put a couple links in there to my playlist of the audios that I've actually heard. And it's about the first 20 chapters. And remember, there's 9 book series, so I've only gone into 9 chapters and I'm already blown away. And I recently was shown Anastacia through coincidence, and I'll go into coincidence, but I knew nothing about Anastacia whatsoever. So I'm gonna go back to the first part that really blew my mind. So to let me know that this 9th series is full of information of how we're going to grow, how we have now new creative thought to be able to project and connect to and make happen in our reality, because it's all positive. She talks about the negative, seeing it for what it is, and how to stay balanced within the self, and how to just accept that mankind is great. Stop shitting on yourself. She doesn't say that. I say that. Those are my words. What is what it is, you know? We don't even allow those words to say mankind is great without having the no, it's not. But who put that in there? Who put the no, it's not. Man ain't great. That is the same way as I'm talking about how we've been trained to say, I don't believe in coincidence, even though we do believe in coincidence. So man is great. And then Anastacia shows us how mankind is great. It's greatness, the greatness of mankind. And so in the book, I think by the 8th or 9th chapter, around there, she pulls out this part about the seeds, how to get seeds to when you plant a fruit seed or food, any vegetable seed, any seeds that you're going to, trees that give fruit, or seeds that give some type of fruit for consumption. You put the seeds under your tongue. You hold them for at least 9 minutes. The saliva goes around the seed and penetrates the seed. You put the seed in the dirt. And once you put the seed in the dirt, you don't water it, so you don't wash off the saliva. So that's just a really quick expression of something much more long and vast. But I'm just trying to sum it up, that with doing that, she's explaining that now the information that the seed has from your genetic code goes into the seed. The seed sees where the corrections need to be made in that person's body and will give fruit or food, whatever that plant is growing. It'll give the substance or the sustenance in the composition to fix that body. Oh, talk about hope, you know. Like goosebumps. I felt goosebumps the first time I heard that, because what I was understanding and I'm hearing is this is coding. So remember, I always say that technology isn't first, that the natural nature is first, and technology copies what's already natural from nature, and we see an expression of it in technology, but it doesn't create without it first being in something natural. And so we have coding for computers, and that's so normal for us, right? Coding in computers, but we don't recognize that the original coding is our DNA working with the structure of the seed, with the genetic structure of the seed. And so everything in nature always looks for balance. It will always seek balance, always seek balance. And so when we put the seeds under the tongue and that saliva of our code absorbs into that seed, and that seed sees where correction needs to be made for that individual, and it goes into the earth and then starts to grow with that code that it needed to be able to develop for that individual. That's natural coding, and we've never been taught these things. And it ain't witchery, it ain't fuckery. It's simple genetic coding. And this is what I mean about, we got to make this information 1, 2, 3, ABC. We got to get our heads out of, I don't know. I can say a whole bunch of things. I ain't gonna say no bad words in that one. We just got to get our heads right and see who's who, what's what, so that we can actually use information that's for the well-being of mankind. And so when I heard that in the Anastacia book, I said, if this is just in the beginning, I can't wait to find out what's in those nine volumes. It will reorganize how we're seeing our world, how we see ourselves, with the hope and clarity we need to understand what mankind is made up of, can do, is, and will always be. And so those are the hopeful words I want to share in this podcast, because hope is always necessary at all times, and it can never be lost unless we lose the ability to imagine. We have to keep our ability in our mind to see a picture of information, like the seeds and the saliva and the genetic code and the growth of that seed, repairing the individual with the information from the saliva, saying what needs to be fixed in this code, or well, let me construct and create what that individual needs. Look at that I couldn't ever see that unless I got the information. But the whole picture was drawn in the mind when information comes in, and then we can construct, and then we can start creating in our world out here. And then those things then start to become reality. And so that's why information, imagination are intertwined, because the imagination will grow with the information. And so we're always being fed fucked up information, and then our fucked up imagination creates in this reality. And it's not because there's something wrong with us, it's just we're always being fed, we're being bombarded with negative. You can't even get a commercial without it being negative in some kind of way. And so what I'm saying is imagination, information is hope for our present and our future, because we must bring it into existence. It's not going to happen on its own. It has to be internalized, processed, and then done. Because we can't wait for other people always to get everything done for us. We have to say, what part can I do here in my world, in my reality, in the space that I have around me? So the way I found Anastacia was all coincidences that were about 2 week long little trail of coincidences that at the end I was like, okay, I better look into this book. I didn't even know it was a book. All I knew it was somebody called Anastacia. And so this is how that little story began, of coincidence, and how to pay extra attention to coincidence and notice the different pieces of information that fit together. That's the best way I can explain it. I had a subscriber who said that when she saw my video on Truth and Integrity Warrior and me speaking about they were in an AI mind virus machine system, she said that information sounds like Anastacia. And I didn't know what Anastacia was, who Anastacia was. I didn't know it was a book series. I didn't have any information. And I left it at that, and I didn't go any deeper. I just said, okay. After that, I had that experience. And then I have this dream. And in this dream, very long dream, but I'm just going to compress it on the relevant part to this coincidence. I see an Asian man, tall, thin, very muscular, long dark hair, and he speaks perfect English, right? And so all these little, very detailed pieces of information of this Asian man is in my dream. I write my dreams down when they impact me. They leave an imprint. I have a tendency to write them down. It's not a tendency. I write them down, correcting my own language. What ended up happening is that information, I didn't know what to do with that dream. I just know it impacted me. And I know that as I walk through the days of my life, that information is going to become relevant in some way. So going back to now my subscriber, where I didn't look into the Anastacia information, later on, I ended up having to break off from that subscriber. I had to block that subscriber. And I'll get into why I had to block that subscriber. But again, it has to do with the Anastacia. It's a trip how these things work. I eventually, after hearing from that subscriber again about Anastacia, I was like, okay, I better go look at Anastacia, because this is she keeps repeating it. Let me go look. So I look up Anastacia. And as I look up Anastacia, I see this guy with long, dark hair. And it's just an image. I haven't clicked on it yet. So it's just his image. And I said, let me look right here. And as I go on there, it's an Asian guy. He speaks perfect English. And he got some, that muscle definition and tone throughout his body. And he's talking about Anastacia and how Anastacia changes direction, and how it's changed the direction of many people, and his perspective of how Anastacia affected him in a positive way. Affected meaning we cause and effect to one another, be a positive or negative. But in this case, we're talking about the positive effect that's generated by listening or reading the information in the Anastacia books. So still, I didn't have any information about Anastacia except for what I'm listening about this guy, but I'm tripping out and I'm saying, okay, so I have a dream about an Asian guy, got long hair, speaks perfect English. This guy's talking about Anastacia, and my subscribers telling me to look into Anastacia. Coincidence? I must pay extra attention to it because it is a coincidence, and it's very unlikely that those things would be happening around the same time, so I better pay extra attention. And here's the part where we should always do something, but we don't always do something. We always end up, or shouldn't say always, but a lot of times we want to get around to do things, but we don't. We end up doing something else, and I didn't get around to really digging in any more information about Anastacia. Found it to be something that I need to do, but it's not something that I got on. And so what ends up happening is that subscriber, in that 2-week period, we were going back and forth, and things started getting hairy and rocky. And I won't go into what that was all about. You can actually read it on the post, going back and forth on her comments on we are in an AI machine virus mind system. She went into a mode on Messenger back and forth, where I was like, okay, I can't talk to this subscriber anymore because they're not themselves. Their communication is very erratic, and I'm not going to deal with that. So right before I cut her off and put a block, she's saying really mean things, really harsh things, very then aggressive. And then in the middle of that comes out, get Anastacia free on PDF. I'm just like, this bitch is yelling at me. She's going to take the time to say, hey, don't forget, you can get Anastacia for free on PDF. And I'm just like, what? I was like, all right, okay. And I still got them saved on my Messenger, so if that ever needs to come up, I'm gonna take images of that because it's just erratic. I'm angry. I hate you. Oh, don't forget to get Anastacia free on PDF. That's when I said, okay, that's enough coincidence for me to say, stop doing what you're doing, Michelle. Get on it. And I got on it. That was it. Who's Anastacia? What's all this about? And I went in and I dug a little deeper. And that's why I say the story that Mr. Vladimir Megre speaks about, I'm going to be putting where he speaks for himself, how he met Anastacia, what it's about, his experience, and that these are real people having a real experience, because it sounds so incredible, so not real when you're listening to the series, that he's there to validate and speak for himself. So I'm going to be putting those videos up so you can see that, and the links is what I meant, videos and links. And then I'm going to put one episode, or not, it's not an episode, it is somebody is reading the Anastacia book series, and I can't remember what chapter it is, but it's going to be the one that I put as number 1. So that number 1, and then I'm going to put that link to Anastacia. Listen to that, because it jumps in the middle of the book. It's not at the beginning. And it is so profound, the words that are in that chapter, that will give a new meaning and understanding to what we're facing and how we're going to come out of this and through this, just on the feeling that the words she shares in that book, in that one little chapter. So I'm saying there's some profound resonance that comes when we listen and hear the words in that book. And remember, this is about changing the field from a vibration from within outwardly. And then we change the matrix around us as individuals, and it extends very far. It's not limited to just right here, it extends. So I'm going to put that, and I hope it does for you what I felt. Hope it does for you what it did for me in the feeling and vibration. And I said, when I heard it, I was like, that's the message people need to hear, to feel that hope. And so those are my messages today of never lose hope. Always imagine further, because we can go further than the limited box that we've been put into. Mankind is extraordinary, and it's time that we find and hone in onto that amazingness, that vibration, that feeling, that oneness, that we seek. It is within, and we generate it out. We just have so much bombarding us from the outside world with all the effects, the negative effects, that it's very hard to hone in on that. And I understand that very well. But step by step, we're going to get there, so that all that just gets pushed outside of whatever space that you're in. Be it in an apartment, in a studio, in a one room, at your mama's house, I don't know. But the point is, wherever you stand is your space. And wherever your space is, you can control that environment of what causes an effect. So no matter how shaky things get on the outside, you can always stand in balance to be able to deal with it. I ain't saying shit ain't gonna be rough. I'm just saying that you can deal with it differently once we get that center balance from within, And so this is Truth and Integrity Warrior. This is a rise of a species, mankind, because we will rise.